If politicians had done their job properly over the last 16 months, we would have fared far better. Whether it was a terrified Boris Johnson, spooked by the sage scientists, or Sir Keir Starmer, who has signed up to whatever the professors of doom have to say. The entire political establishment, save for a few principled Tory backbenchers, have let the country down. Now, I'm going to cut Sage some slack, because they've had one focus only, which is the virus, the management of which, by the way, I think they've got wrong. But it's not their fault that damaging lockdowns and ongoing restrictions became policy. Advisors advise and ministers decide. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. But of course, in this pandemic, we've had the opposite. And that is a failure of political leadership. The Prime Minister has spent 16 months hiding behind sage advisors, and we are now paying the price. We elect and pay politicians for a reason, to do what's best for the country and all of the people in it, not the tiny fraction of society facing a mortal threat from the disease. Wreaking extraordinary and lasting damage on the country and exacting a likely far higher COVID death toll from restrictions is not and has never been in the national interest. And that's before you get to the abject horror of how children and young people have been treated. When the state of Florida, a densely populated conurbation with grinding inequality, uneven access to comprehensive healthcare, and an ageing population, when they lifted all COVID restrictions many months ago, it was called Neanderthal thinking by President Joe Biden. But cases fell, and the sports stadia are now full. And they have full restaurants, full shopping malls, full offices, and full schools. California, meanwhile, only recently lifted restrictions for which they have therefore paid a far higher price. But I want to look forwards, not back. All that matters is that we never do this again. In the end, you have to draw the line somewhere and put a full stop on this. Even if lockdowns and other COVID measures work, which is a big if, it's not looking good at the moment, none of this is sustainable anyway. So Boris must not buckle under pressure. The leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, has already called the move reckless in terms of Freedom Day, because Labour don't care about spiralling debt or lack of civil liberties. And more than 100 scientists have condemned the government's plans to abandon coronavirus restrictions, describing it as a dangerous and unethical experiment. How ironic, when a dangerous and unethical experiment is the perfect description of lockdowns of which they are so keen. We've heard quite enough from scientists over the last 16 months, and history will judge their strategy very harshly, in my view. Don't tell me that creating the biggest recession in 300 years won't damage and end many more lives. So it's time to start listening instead, not to the scientists, the prophets of doom, but painters and decorators, hoteliers, bar staff, window cleaners, wedding planners, joiners, brickies, and all small businesses. It's time to listen to school children, college students, actors, musicians, accountants, management consultants, salespeople, and the whole glorious army that makes up the great British workforce. And with vaccines working, the economy is now the only show in town, which is why July the 19th is so important. Standing his ground on Freedom Day will be Boris's Churchill moment, but it will take huge political courage, because we are now at war with pessimism and fear. We must see off the enemy of economic, societal and health damage. There are many who seek appeasement of the virus at any cost, but we mustn't wave the white flag. Resisting this pressure will be your victory, Boris, your finest hour. And mark my words, if freedom doesn't come on July the 19th, there is a chilling possibility that it never will. And then we've really lost the war. This is Talk Radio.